Welcome to Qualtrax. In this video, we're going to learn how to create a training session. In order to create a training session, we're going to navigate to the Administration tab and then choose Training. On this page, you'll see a list of your currently available training sessions that you're free to send out or possibly edit. Today, we're going to create a new training session by selecting the Create option in the upper left-hand corner. Here we're going to give our new training session a name. Then choose Create. You may notice the interface of training is very similar to the interface of testing. Starting with the General tab, this is where you can set up the general parameters for your training session. Next, we have the Training Attendees tab, where we can indicate who's responsible for completing this training session. Then we have the Sign Off Personnel tab, where you can assign who's responsible for signing off on a user's training, whether that's completion or effectiveness. Then we have the Cancel Trainings tab, where you're able to remove any existing training sessions from users' inboxes. Starting on the General tab of our training definition, we will have our title. You are always free to update or change this title if necessary. Below that, we have the description of our training. This could be simple instructions, all the way to an entire training curriculum typed out in this text box. Below that, we have a few options around this training. The first option is enabled yes or no. You'll want to make sure that your training is enabled before you are able to send it out. The next option for expires, this is a way to automate the delivery of your training session. If we change this to yes, we'll have a few options. First, we could automate the delivery of this training session every certain amount of days, weeks, months, or years, or on a particular calendar date during the year. The third option is very similar to the first. You could have this training session delivered every certain amount of days, weeks, months, or years after the user initially completes it. Moving to the right-hand side, we have a few more options that we can utilize for our training session. The first one labeled Job Related. This is a category for reporting. You can select this to make this training a job-specific training session, or if it's unchecked, it might be more of a generic training session open to everyone. The second option that says Allow Attachments, this gives the user the ability to upload attachments from their computer to their training record. This could be in the form of a training certificate from a third-party off-site training session, or perhaps they are uploading evidence for some tasks that they are required to use during their training. The third option, Allow Self-Submissions, will give you the ability to make this training session open-ended in nature, so users can log in and complete this training voluntarily without explicitly being assigned to complete it. Please be aware, if you choose to use this option, you cannot have the training automatically expire with the previous option that we discussed. The fourth checkbox, Password Verification Required, you may have seen this in other areas of the software. This is a feature explicitly used for our FDA customers, where they are able to use this to have users log in a second time to verify who they are. Next, you have an option to attach an existing test from your system to this particular training session. The user will be asked to complete that test at the end of their training. Below that, you have an option to attach a document from your document tree. If you choose Select, it's going to populate a mini version of your document tree where you are free to select a specific document that will be attached to your training session. The last options on the General tab involve sign-off requirements. You have the ability to assign two different sign-offs to your training. One is a completion sign-off and one is an effectiveness sign-off. These can be assigned to users or groups, and when those users or groups sign off, there will be a digital record of them doing so. You can elect to use one or the other, or possibly both. If you use either one of these, you can also choose the option that says Requires All Users. If either one of these sign-offs are assigned to a group and you select Requires All Users, that means everyone in that group must sign off to satisfy the requirement. If you do not select Requires All Users and you assign one of these sign-offs to a group, it will only require one of the users from the group to satisfy the sign-off requirement. Always be sure to save your changes before moving on. Continuing on to the Training Attendees tab, this is where you will indicate who's responsible for completing your training session. Here you'll see a list of all of your personnel and groups. Feel free to select any that apply. Once you have selected your personnel or groups, you also have an option to select Required. This is nothing more than a category for reporting, labeling this training as required or possibly optional. I'm going to leave this unchecked, indicating that this training is optional. I will then select Add. You will also have another chance to choose that required checkbox. Before we send it out though, we have a few more options that we're going to configure. Since I elected to use both sign-off options, we're going to navigate to the Sign-Off Personnel tab. Here you will see a familiar list of personnel and groups where we can indicate who's responsible for signing off for the completion sign-off as well as the effectiveness sign-off. You're free to choose whoever is applicable for these roles. Once you have made your selections, you can go ahead and choose whether they're responsible for completion and/or effectiveness, and then select Add. You will also have a second chance to choose whether they are responsible for completion and/or effectiveness over on the right-hand side. Once you have made your selections, go ahead and once again save your changes. In order to send our training session out, we're going to navigate back to the Training Attendees tab and check the box next to the user we would like to send this training to. We're going to check the Send To checkbox, and then we're going to select the Send Training option on the bottom. You'll receive a message that says your training was successfully sent. If at any point in time you need to cancel a training in a user's inbox, you can navigate back to this training definition and go to the Cancel Trainings tab. Select the user that you wish to cancel their training from. Then choose Cancel Trainings. Thank you for attending this Qualtrax training. If you have any further questions, please reach out to support or your account manager.